We are living in a time where there is more available than ever before, more information at our fingertips, more things promising to make us happier, more ways to heal, more ways to get healthy, more content, more opinions, more opportunities to compare ourselves to everyone else. And for a long time, I believed that progress looked like more information, more healing, more productivity, more goals, more certainty, more answers. If I could just learn a little more, understand a little more, do a little more, maybe I would finally arrive somewhere. But lately, I've been noticing something different. The healthiest parts of my life aren't expanding. They're simplifying. Not because I've given up, not because I've stopped growing, but because I'm beginning to understand that growth and accumulation aren't the same thing. Sometimes growth isn't about adding. Sometimes it's about removing, letting go of what's unnecessary, creating space for what actually matters. And that's what I want to talk about today. The wisdom of doing less. As a society, we're conditioned to believe that more is better. More success, more followers, more certifications, more healing modalities, more books, more podcasts, more information, more stuff. And it starts young. Parents, often with the best intentions, contribute to that idea that more is better. More activities, more sports, more camps, more tutoring, more screen time that's supposedly educational. But sometimes I wonder if what our kids are learning isn't quite what we think they're learning. The absence of boredom doesn't allow creativity to blossom. The absence of downtime doesn't allow for introspection, independent thought, or the natural process of the brain and body working things out on their own. Kids become young adults who don't know how to pause. They don't know how to sit with themselves. They don't know how to think independently because their lives have been so full of doing that when they finally have downtime of their own, they're paralyzed by it. They look to others for what they should be doing, wearing, studying, believing, or becoming. And then we expect them to somehow grow into confident, self-directed adults and save the world. Does that seem off to anyone else? Now, I've fallen into this trap too. I'm a doer by nature. Ironically, my mom didn't push me into activities growing up. Quite the opposite. If I wanted to try something, I had to ask. She didn't deny me opportunities, but waited until I expressed interest on my own. And thankfully, we didn't have the constant stream of technology, information, and comparison that exists today. Maybe that's a good thing. But even without all of that, I still gravitated toward the belief that more was better, more self-improvement, more healing, more answers, always searching for the next thing that would finally fix me, heal me, or make me more successful, more aware, more evolved, just more. That's the drug that's being sold today. And many of us are addicted to it. What I've realized lately is that more isn't always growth. Sometimes more is just another form of seeking. Consumerism disguised as self-improvement. Accumulation disguised as progress. So why are we so drawn to more in the first place? Is it the sense of accomplishment that comes from checking off another box? Is it because we're using achievement to outpace our own internal conflicts about being enough? Perhaps we're running toward becoming because we're afraid of what happens when we stop. What if we're actually running to nowhere? One of the biggest realizations I've had recently is that the nervous system can disguise survival with ambition. That was my aha moment. For most of my life, I thought I was evolving. And in many ways, I was. But what I hadn't fully seen was that some of that striving was still being driven by fear. The constant seeking of my truth, the scanning, the anticipating, trying to figure out what could happen next, trying to predict what people might need, trying to stay one step ahead of life, always looking for the next thing I needed to do in order to feel safe. And then one day, I found myself asking a question I had never really stopped to ask before. Safe from what exactly? Because if I'm being honest, there is no tiger chasing me, no immediate threat, no crisis unfolding. Yet my body was behaving as if there was always something I needed to prepare for, something I needed to fix, something I needed to become. And that's when it hit me. The seeking itself had become a safety strategy. If I kept learning, maybe I'd finally know enough. If I kept healing, maybe I'd finally be healed. If I kept growing, maybe I'd finally arrive. But arrive where? And at what point do we stop and recognize the finish line keeps moving because we're the ones moving it? What if there isn't one more thing to learn? One more certification to earn? One more book to read? One more answer waiting just around the corner? What if the thing we've been looking for is the willingness to stop looking for a moment and notice what's already here? And when I finally stopped looking, something became impossible to ignore. It wasn't an answer. It was a feeling that had been with me all my life. I've had this hum in the background for as long as I can remember. It's like white noise, always there. For years, I couldn't identify it. I assumed it was just a part of being human. A subtle feeling that something was missing, a low grade restlessness, a sense that there was always something else I should be doing, figuring out, preparing for, or becoming. I felt it when I was working. I felt it while I was playing. I felt it in the pause. I even felt it in stillness. It was always there. And recently, I decided to take a deeper look at my beliefs around worthiness and deserving. I went back and watched my childhood. Did I feel worthy as a child? Worthy of love? Worthy of success? Worthy of receiving? And surprisingly, the answer was yes. So if it wasn't worthiness, what was this buzz felt during almost every waking hour? One day it hit me completely out of the blue. It was fear. Not the fear of not being enough, not the fear of failure, not even the fear of being unloved. It was the fear of not being safe, the staying under the radar kind of fear, the don't draw too much attention to yourself kind of fear, the keep moving so nothing can catch you kind of fear. And suddenly I could see it. My entire life had been this strange dance between wanting to soar and wanting to stay hidden, wanting to be seen, but not too seen, wanting success, but not enough to become a target, wanting expansion while unconsciously keeping myself just under the radar. And if that's the belief operating underneath everything, then it's the signal I'm sending out. People don't respond to the story. They respond to the signal. And my signal was caution. Stay small enough to stay safe. Then something remarkable happened. The humming stopped, almost as if it had served its purpose and was no longer needed. Like a beacon that had been trying to guide me toward the thing that needed to be seen. And once it was seen, it could finally rest. That shift was immediate, not dramatic, not emotional. It wasn't excitement. It wasn't relief. It was silence, just still. A level of stillness I've never experienced before. Nothingness. No urgency to do. No need to chase. No need to prove. No need to earn. That internal debate, the constant back and forth, the endless scanning, gone. And what replaced it wasn't emptiness. It was clarity, a clarity of being, more present in the now, more space in my mind, more room for creativity, more room for flow, more room to receive. I don't feel like I gotta go get everything anymore. It feels like life is finally coming to meet me. And with that comes a peace I've never really known before. Not that hope that everything will work out. It's the knowing that everything will. A quiet trust. A certainty that doesn't need to convince anyone. Just a deep understanding that I can stop running now. Maybe the wisdom of less isn't really about having less. Maybe it's about carrying less. Less fear. Less pressure. Less proving. Less responsibility for the things that were never yours to hold. Less attachment to who you think you should be. And perhaps more reflection on what keeps you chained to more in the first place. Because once you discover what's generating that hum, the hum no longer needs to keep calling your attention to it. The constant seeking, the scanning, the striving, the feeling that something is missing. If you're fully present in your life now, the need for more starts to quietly disappear. Not because you've stopped growing, but because you've stopped looking outside of yourself for what can only be found within. You don't need more self-help. You don't need more answers. Much of the wisdom you're searching for is already stored within you, waiting to be witnessed, heard, and understood. You don't need more stuff. You need to discover what still holds meaning in your life today and release what no longer does. You don't need something outside of yourself to prove your worth. You don't need to earn your place here. You don't need to become more in order to be enough. Which brings me to a question. What are you ready to put down? Thank you for joining me for another episode of Who Are You Now? And remember, awareness is where everything begins to shift. Our shift is ended for today.